Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And today, we all know that the Olympics are over, but I thought that when the Olympics were over, the drama would be over. Turns out the Paralympics are filled with drama because a biological male is competing against blind biological females. There's crazy drama there. And there's also some drama in the UK as a nursing organization is allowing nurses to refuse treatments to any patient that they deem racist. Plus, Alabama confirmed it found over 3,000 potential non-citizens registered to vote in the state. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. A partially blind runner who won 11 national titles in the men's category will now compete as a woman in the Paralympics for Team Italy. Valentina Petrillo won these titles between 2015 and 2018 and transitioned in 2019 to identify as a woman. According to a report from BBC Sports, the sprinter, who again, her name is Valentina Petrillo, she is set to be the first trans para-Olympian. Valentina is 50 years old and has competed in the women's T12 classification for athletes with visual impairments and, like I said, transitioned back in 2019. There is obviously a lot of drama around this because Petrillo believes that this is some sort of important symbol for inclusion, whereas other people, including lawyers and athletes who are represented by lawyers, they believe that this is, there's a lot more that they can do to oppose this because they think that basically the IOC or the IPC, which is the International Paralympics Committee, they believe that they've chosen inclusion over actual fairness. So the reason I pulled up this BBC Sports article is because it gives really good insight into what the actual rules are, because that's where my head goes. I'm like, okay, well, is the IPC allowing this? Because yes, I do believe the onus is on the athlete, but at the same time, the athlete is working within the existing rules and the existing framework. You can't blame them as much as you can blame the organizations that allow this. But this is what answering the question, what does the rule say, concludes. Says currently there is no unified position in sport towards trans inclusion. The IPC does allow international sport governing bodies to set their own policies. Now, one caveat I do want to make is that the IPC doesn't necessarily, the world of IPC doesn't operate in the same world of IOC. You would think it's very similar with, them having the same technicality, they're both Olympics, right? But that is not what this is. The IPC has very different guidelines because they have to weigh people's disabilities against one another. That's part of it. And we'll get to this a little later in the story, but athletes aren't plucked like country by country and given representatives in the same manner that they do at the IOC. So try when you're going through this to realize that they're not the same committees, okay? Obviously, they're not the same committees, but they don't operate in the same manner as well. It's not like a tit for tat there. So the IPC, like I said, does allow these international sports governing bodies, which the international sports governing bodies are the ones picking the qualifiers for the Paralympics. So obviously there are significant differences between World Athletics policies and those of World Para Athletics. It says World Athletics has banned trans women from competing in the female category at the international events. Its president, Lord Coe, said the decision was, quote, to maintain fairness for female athletes above all other consideration. But under World Para Athletics rules, a person who is legally recognized as a woman is eligible to compete in the category their impairment qualifies them for. Okay, this article is written very poorly. So it is the IPC that is allowing this. That is exactly what is happening here. It's the IPC that is allowing this. Therefore, I believe the onus is more on the IPC than it is on the individual athlete. So it says the IPC is not considering ruling across Paralympic sports in terms of this trans rule. So I want to get down to who is Petrillo because, like I said, I've put the onus, I've put the problem on this IPC organization. But how much of the onus do we put on Petrillo in and of Petrillo's self. I'm not going to use pronouns here, okay? So this article says, who is Petrillo? In a previous interview with the BBC, Petrillo said that Petrillo knew Petrillo was a woman as young as the age of 9. Okay, sorry if this is confusing. I'm trying not to use pronouns, so bear with me. So the article reads, at the age of 14, Petrillo was diagnosed with Stargardt disease, a degenerative eye condition. So sad. And this individual won, like I mentioned at the top of the story, 11 national titles in the male T12 category for athletes with visual impairment between 2015 and 2018. Now, what's confusing about this is that this individual is 50 years old, but did not begin conversion therapy or transition therapy, if you're going to call it that, until 2019. Even though in this article, at the age of 14, Petrillo was, at the age of 9, even younger, at the age of 9, Petrillo knew that Petrillo was allegedly a woman. And then in the article, it attempts to make you feel bad for this individual. It says, my metabolism has changed, Petrillo told the BBC. I'm not the energetic person I was. In the first months of transition, I put on 10 kilograms. I can't eat the way I did before. I became anemic. My hemoglobin is low. I'm always cold. I don't have the same physical strength. My sleep isn't what it was. I have mood swings. In the kindest of ways, no shit. That is what happens when you put hormone therapy or cross-sex hormones into your body. I just don't understand how that could be such a surprise to you, but I'm not here to condemn this individual. What I'm trying to figure out is whether this is fair or not. And I think what I need to highlight here is that this is not just unfair to the biological female Paralympians that Valentina Petrillo is going to compete against in real life. Of course, we can all agree that's unfair, but what I would argue is the worst part is that the Paralympics, like I said, are not like the regular Olympics. They're not always based on the country getting a representative. There are pre-qualifiers that allow people to compete in the Paralympics ahead of time. So an X account detailed this out, saying, this is Melanie Burgess-Gamez. She is 90% blind. When she runs tethered to a guide. Melanie is a elementary school teacher in Madrid. Melanie did not get to go to the Paralympics because Valentina took Melanie's place. Now, if you're in the listening audience, you can see Melanie she looks like she's probably in her 30s, maybe, probably late 20s at the youngest, probably later. And she runs with a guide. She has sunglasses on. She is 90% visually impaired. And then you can compare this to Fabrizio Valentina Petrillo, who took Melanie's place. The media has obviously called this groundbreaking, stunning, brave. But this is what Valentina used to look like. And this is what Valentina looks like now. As I feel I've adequately exemplified, it is so wildly unfair in more than one way that this person is competing. And the other standing point for me was, if this person were winning championships as a man, but claimed he's always been a woman, then what are you doing competing in the men's category in the first place? Like, this defies logic, right? I can hold space in my mind for the idea that male athletes who want to be women will spend their whole lives trying to present as women and then attempt to compete as women one day. I don't think it's fair. I wouldn't encourage it, but I can wrap my mind around that concept, right? I cannot wrap my head around the idea that a person with actual gender dysphoria would compete in the male category and not present as a male would not present as a female until it's politically and culturally convenient to compete in the women's category. I don't buy it. And I guarantee that you don't either, but please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Speaking of crazy Olympics news, transgender Olympian Imane Khelif filed a cyberbullying lawsuit and has filed criminal complaint charges against Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling. Imane claims to be a victim of misogyny by Musk and Rowling's online commentary. Oh my gosh, the irony of a transgender athlete claiming to be a victim of misogyny. This report coming to us from The Guardian reads, J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk have been named in a cyberbullying lawsuit filed in France by the Olympic champion boxer Imane Khelif. Of course, my first question was, oh my gosh, how is this person filing the lawsuit? Of course, they are filing in France because this was happening while he or she, whatever pronoun you want to use, was residing in Paris. Khelif, who was the subject of global gender eligibility during Khelif's Olympic run. Gosh, these pronouns are really tripping me up, so bear with me. But Khelif became Algeria's first gold medalist in women's boxing and was the first boxer overall to win gold since 1996. Khelif's attorney, Nabil Bouti, said they had, or Bouti, when that came out, I heard it. Nabil Bouti. Anyway, the attorney said they had filed a criminal complaint over alleged, quote, acts of cyber harassment to the Paris Public Prosecutor's Office on Friday. The legal action was filed against X, formerly Twitter, which under French law means it was filed under or against unknown persons. It claims the 25-year-old was the victim of misogynistic, racist, and sexist cyberbullying. Among those listed were J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk, and somebody added that Trump tweeted about this, so whether or not Donald Trump is named in Imane Khelif's lawsuit, whether or not they do that, he, quote, will inevitably be looked into as part of the prosecution. So what's going on here, and there's a little bit of controversy online, and it's difficult to talk about, so let me try to do my best given, our censorship regime. But Khelif faced accusations over Khelif's gender after it was revealed that Khelif was banned from competing in the 2023 Boxing World Championships because Khelif had failed a gender eligibility test administered by the IBA. But the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, so many acronyms, you cannot keep up. But the IOC was disputing this test, and before the Paris events, stripped the IBA of recognition as boxing's governing body and expelled it from the Olympics over issues due to corruption, financial transparency, and governance. And so the IOC said scientifically this is a man, or this is not a man fighting a woman, this is a woman fighting a woman. And so obviously that's the IOC's position on it. I'll get into whether that's true or not after, but I do want to just keep going through this article. It says that a lot of the reasons why this individual, Imane Khelif, is receiving online backlash is because Italian boxer Angela Carini abandoned her match with Khelif in the 66-kilogram boxing competition after just 46 seconds, claiming she had never felt a punch like that in her entire life. J.K. Rowling posted things, Elon posted things, Trump posted things. There were so many people, and Khelif's coach had spoken out and said that the bullying the boxer endured, quote, incredibly affected everyone around Khelif. I'm going to say, in all honesty, like if you are a boxer, I feel like online hate cannot possibly be the hardest thing you've had to go through in your entire life, but that's a different thing. So to clarify, I just want to clear this up. I was fearful I had somehow missed something because the IOC was just adamant that this person is a woman. So let me clarify. Every human being is born with either XX or XY chromosomes. XX making you male, XY making you female. Okay, regardless of your secondary sex characteristics, that's what you're born with. Imane Khelif was born with XX chromosomes, making Imane a biological male. Now, it's come into speculation that Imane was somehow born with, we'll say, different sex characteristics, meaning that this person could be born a male with XX chromosomes, but identify differently because of those sex marker differences, if you catch my drift. Either way, you're either XX or XY. So don't let the IOC confuse you, okay? It's just confusing. But I will add on this entire story, this is not the first lawsuit we've seen about this topic, and just out of Paris in general. You'll remember that we previously reported about the fat DJ from the Olympics opening ceremony. That individual filed a lawsuit against online trolls because that person's feelings were hurt over online bullying. So my message to you out there is don't compete, don't get involved, don't join the Olympics, or be a part of anything that's contentious if you cannot take the blowback, okay? That's all I have to say, since This topic is like fire online. I need to be sparing in my commentary, okay? But if you like what you heard so far, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed if you're watching on YouTube, Rumble, or X. If you're in the listening audience, please be sure to leave this video a 5-star review. It helps boost the show in the algorithm. Moving on to our next story. A top UK nursing college updated its guidelines to allow nurses to refuse to treat patients that they perceive as racist. Making a racist joke or a joke perceived as racist by a woke nurse could get your medical care taken away. That could possibly go wrong, could it? This article coming to us from National Review. It says the United Kingdom's Royal College of Nursing has updated its guidance to allow medical professionals to refuse to treat patients perceived as, racist. Ooh, I was taken aback by that. It says the riots that were spurred by a late July knife attack. So if you haven't been keeping up on this, there was a knife attack that killed 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance party. And the attacker was a teenage boy whose parents were Rwandan immigrants. This has stirred some, I wouldn't say racial tensions, but just immigration tensions that have been felt in the UK. I'm not an expert on this because it's not really an underreported story per se, but it's worth diving into. I have some preliminary knowledge on what initially happened with this attack and then some of the riots that we're seeing in place of this. So the Royal College of Nursing General Secretary and Chief Executive, well, what a frickin' title, Nicola Ranger, said these scenes around the country, referring to the riots, are nothing short of despicable racism. They have no place in our society. Again, that's not really getting at the chief issue, nor do I understand why a nursing college is chiming in on this. But the statement goes on to say, as an anti-racist organization, the Royal College of Nursing will take a lead part in tackling this hatred. I don't understand why a nursing organization needs to be at the forefront of race relations in politics, but okay. This is, of course, an organization and a trade union for medical staff with over 500,000 members, so it's very influential. This includes nurses, midwives, assistant practitioners, students, and this spans across 12 countries and regions. And this is so funny. The updated guidance, I mean, it's not funny. Sorry, I shouldn't say it's funny. It's just crazy, you know? It says the updated guidance recognizes discriminatory behavior, including racism, as a situation that, quote, may justify withdrawing care or refusing to treat a patient. As I had kind of teased at the front, an example of discrimination, according to this organization, is, quote, racist jokes. One final part of the statement that I thought was so interesting, it says, migrant nursing staff are precious members of our communities, hardwired into the very DNA of our health and care services. Our international colleagues are welcome, valued, and owed a debt of gratitude. So where my mind went is I wanted to know whether the UK has an equivalent to the US's Hippocratic Oath. And Google told me that they don't have an exact equivalent, but most universities use what is known as the Bristol Promise as the gold standard of oaths. And this is what it reads. I, say your name, undertake that as a graduate in medicine of the University of Bristol or insert university, I will practice my profession to the best of my knowledge and ability with conscience and integrity. I will respect the secrets which are confided in me and maintain the utmost respect for human life. I will hold in the deepest respect the honorable traditions and obligations of the medical profession, even under threat. Yes, it specifically says even under threat. Now, a racist joke is not a real threat. It's just a joke in either poor timing or poor taste. But these doctors and nurses are supposed to take an oath to perform their duties even under threat. So this new guidance from Royal College of Nursing is a violation of their own codes for ethics for the sake of performative wokeness. Also, just thinking logically through this, polarizing medical necessities based on politics, that's a pretty dark path to go on. There will be accusations of borderline genocide based on ideology if this is enacted out in a large-scale manner. I mean, that's the only conclusion you come to, that you're not going to take care of people, that you are going to discriminate healthcare on the basis of political ideology. It's disgusting. Let's get into some more political stories. So Kamala Harris's campaign is deceptively editing news headlines on Google to make those headlines favorable towards her without the news outlets even realizing. The outlets affected include The Guardian, Reuters, CBS News, and PBS. Not sure why the campaign would be so obvious about this. I will say, I'm sure CBS and PBS gladly would have deceptively edited those headlines for Kamala anyway. So, don't know why the campaign didn't just go ask. But for more information, we're going to head over to the New York Post, where you can kind of see the deceptive editing that I'm talking about. So, this is an example from The Guardian. If you're listening, I'm going to kind of try my best to explain it for you, but I would really encourage you to come over to the YouTube, Rumble, or X channel to see this. It is linked below. But it says, VP Harris fights abortion bans. Harris defends reproductive freedom. And it looks like it is an article for The Guardian. And then above it, it says sponsored, paid for by Harris for president, presidential campaign. But they altered the headlines that make it look like it's the news outlet's headline, but it's not. It's just deceptively edited. And the New York Post says even smaller publications like North Dakota's W Day Radio also saw their headlines changed. So they're not going just for the large actors. They're going for small balls too. The ads include links to real articles from the news outlets, but the headlines and the deceptive text have been edited to cast a supportive light on Kamala Harris. So here are some other examples. You have the AP News. It says, VP Harris's economic vision, lower costs and higher wages. The article is not about this, though. It is changing the headline via the Harris for president, but it doesn't say anything about that. And then below it says, Trump will, quote, terminate ACA, Harris will lower health costs, as if that's an NPR headline. It's not. Now, anyone could totally believe that because these people, and by these people I mean the mainstream media, of course would write these kind of glowing headlines about Kamala Harris. But that is actually not what happened. That's not what happened. It was the Kamala Harris campaign going in and deceptively editing this and then not telling these news outlets. So spokespeople from the affected companies, including CNN, USA Today, and NPR, all of which have published obviously very flattering content about Kamala Harris in the past few weeks, said they had no idea the companies were tied up in this campaign. They were not told about this, okay, at all, again. This also says, a Guardian spokesperson. While we understand why an organization might wish to align itself with the Guardian's trusted brand, we need to ensure it is being used appropriately and with our permission. We'll be reaching out to Google for more information about this practice. So the Guardian's obviously a little pissed about this, but apparently this does not violate Google's policies because the fake ads are prominently labeled as sponsored, which makes it easily distinguishable from search results. It's not the problem of that it's sponsored or not. I don't mind that. My problem here is that people will think, and even I would think I would consider myself a pretty smart individual, that if the headline reads, Trump will pardon J6 rioters, VP Harris protects democracy, and it's linked to an independent.co.uk article, that is what the article headline is. Because that's how Google has trained our brains, you know? This is so dumb. So this is what Google said, its spokesperson. It said, they also include paid for by disclosures, so it's clear to users who paid for them. It's fairly common for advertisers to link out to or cite external websites, including news sites. I don't think that this is common at all. I could see people putting out ads like that's not the problem. The problem is that it looks like it belongs to a separate news outlet, and that is that news outlet's headline. Like, how is that not against Google's rules? I'm actually not even mad at the Kamala campaign for doing this when I think about it. Like, if Google is dumb enough to allow this deception, which is what it is, deception on their platform, then the campaign is obviously going to capitalize in this. Obviously, it speaks to how the Kamala campaign is a bunch of liars, but I don't fault liars for trying to use tactics to win. But what I personally hate here is that Google has suppressed countless ads from Trump, especially not during this round of the campaign, but during the 2020 campaign in particular. But Kamala can then come and manipulate news headlines without permission, and those news headlines don't even know, and that's allowed? Like, that's one of the most disgusting big tech overreaches I think I've seen in my lifetime. And for our final story, we have some kind of successful news for our election system. Alabama discovered more than 3,000 non-citizens were registered to vote in the state, and the Secretary of State is taking actions to remove them from the voter registration. We have a great article coming to us from the Federalist. I really appreciate the Federalist's no-holds-barred approach to talking about election integrity. It's it's really awesome. We don't really see that everywhere. So Logan Washburn saying the Alabama Secretary of State, Wes Allen, discovered 3,251 registered voters with non-citizen ID numbers were issued by the Department of Homeland Security. And now the Secretary of State, Wes Allen, is telling local administrators to, quote, inactivate and initiate steps necessary to remove those individuals who are not U.S. citizens from the voter file. Now, where this kind of becomes contentious is that some of these potential non-citizens may have become citizens after initially getting non-citizen ID numbers, according to the release. Now, I don't know why this would be problematic. Logically, it's not problematic because these people were registered when they were non-citizens, which they should never have been. And now they have to re-register when they become citizens, or they should have re-registered when they became citizens, because that's just how it works. You know, I was an immigrant too, and we registered to vote when we became citizens. You know, like that's just how it works. I'm lost on why that's confusing at all. But it says Allen's office will inactivate these registrations and allow those who have since become citizens to update their registration with an Alabama driver's license, a non-driver ID, or the last 4 digits of their social security number. Now, one part that stood out to me as particularly interesting is that the federal government denied, quote, repeated requests to help with this investigation. So Allen was this is the Secretary of State of Alabama, had contacted the Department of Homeland Security and the Citizenship and Immigration Services Division within the DHS back in November of 23, trying to get a list of non-citizens living in Alabama to cross-reference with the state voter file to make sure that the people that they were taking off the list were, in fact, non-citizens only. Of course, they tried to reach out to the White House, the entire administration at large, and they just got completely stonewalled. Which part of me thinks, okay, that's the federalist system at work, right? This is a state issue. Let the state be the thing. But that's the state's investigation. They're just asking for federal assistance in an investigation. They're not asking for money, you know? But again, stories like this are the beauty of the federalist system working. You know, we have states that take elections very seriously. They're going to go in and do the hard work. Unfortunately, why I said this story was like kind of awesome is, let's be honest, it's not crazy important that this takes place in Alabama. I don't want to negate the power of the story, but I want to see this happen in Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, the swing states, okay? Change at that level in those states, that will ensure security in our elections. If you stuck around until the end of the show, would you please drop the green checkmark emoji? I feel like it's going to make the comments look like everyone is agreeing with me, and I could just use that in my life right now. So thanks, friends. See you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment about how beautiful, stunning, and funny I am. And if you want more content based in logic, be sure to click over here for more videos and clips of my show. If you have the means to financially support the show, consider purchasing from my merch line, Based Apparel, linked right below. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.